Don't get me wrong, the gimbal is an amazing tool that's perfectly suited to a number of different filmmaking situations. I use them all the time, which is why I made a video dedicated to 5 reasons why you should work with them. However, there are also quite a few instances where using a gimbal is less than desirable. So let's flip the script this time and unpack 5 reasons or situations where you may not want to use a gimbal. The number one issue I run into when using gimbals, especially in more free-form documentary situations where characters aren't blocked or given an agreed upon movement or positioning, is the lack of precision I have over framing the shot and moving the camera. Those that have a preference for perfection over their frames may find gimbals a little frustrating. This comes down to how gimbals work. They're constructed with 3 motors that stabilize and control the horizontal left to right movement of a camera called pan, the vertical up and down motion called tilt, and how the camera rolls from side to side. When operating these gimbals handheld and doing a movement on one of these axes, there's no way for operators to precisely control exactly where the camera stops and at what speed it moves. The gimbal motors move the camera based on feel, or how much momentum the operator uses to angle the camera, which moves it along that line. Unlike other tools such as a tripod head or operating the camera handheld, which can precisely control the speed of movement and exactly where the camera stops. Gimbals can feel a bit laggy, which means you have to try and anticipate stopping the camera with your own movement before the actual moment that it needs to stop. This means sometimes you land on the perfect frame, and sometimes you don't. In filmmaking, an extremely important component of cinematography is maintaining consistency across multiple takes. This applies not only to the lighting, but also to the camera moves and focus. If each take is repeated in a slightly different way due to the gimbal operator, at different speeds with different framing and with different positioning and blocking, it makes it a bit more difficult for other variables like lighting and accurate focus pulling to remain consistent. This may make it difficult to cut different parts of different takes together in a single scene. This isn't to say that there aren't some very good operators who can control gimbals with a high degree of precision. However, if you want to do a pinpoint pan or tilt move that ends on a specific frame, there are other tools that can do this much more consistently and easily. A workaround is for one operator to move the camera, while the other operator uses wheels to wirelessly control the camera's movement like a remote head. But this isn't possible for solo operators. Like most rigs designed to carry a camera, gimbals have a payload, a maximum weight limit that they can carry before they start to malfunction. Unlike mechanical production tripod heads that can easily carry the full weight of big production cameras and cinema lenses, gimbals have a much lower weight tolerance that will start to strain the motors. How the camera is built and how that weight is distributed across the gimbal is also very important. For a gimbal to work efficiently, it needs to be balanced so that the weight of the camera is evenly positioned across each axis. This means adjusting the camera's position left and right and up and down until it remains level once you release it. If the camera drops forward, for example, it indicates the gimbal is front heavy and that the tilt motor will need to strain to keep it even. The disadvantage that this has is twofold. One, because gimbals have a lower payload, it means that only certain camera and lens combinations will be able to balance. This may mean that cinematographers may not be able to choose certain large anamorphic lenses, long zooms, or shoot on a big production camera with a heavy body. The second disadvantage is that each time anything needs to be added or removed from the camera build, the gimbal will need to be rebalanced to adjust for the change in weight. So every time a lens is changed, a few extra minutes will need to be added between setups. This doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're shooting over the course of a day, all these combined rebalancing moments can slow down the pace of shooting a fair amount. And as we know, time on a set is money. If you're watching this, there's a pretty good chance that you're looking to become a filmmaker or already are one. If so, I'd highly recommend you check out a creative initiative from today's sponsor Nanlite and Nanlux. To encourage creative filmmaking from international participants, they are offering funding to produce 2 narrative short films and 2 experimental films in their second edition of their Spark project. Each group of creators that is chosen will receive an amazing $15,000 in funding and $5,000 in equipment rental to bring their vision to life. All the finished shorts will be eligible for submission to major film awards, and your work will be showcased by Nanlite and Nanlux in multiple cinemas. All you have to do is submit your creative synopsis and outline for your film based on the theme Shining Through before April 18th, 2024 for a chance to win this incredible opportunity. On another note, if you already have Nanlite lighting products like me, you may be interested to know that they've just released a new 2.0 version of their Nanlink app, which is a great tool for precisely controlling fixtures on the fly. It also comes with a new light plot feature, which you can use to create lighting diagrams that can be shared with your team, and used to wirelessly manage the levels and color of your lights, all from your phone. Go check out the update now. The smooth floating camera motion that you can get with a gimbal is desirable for many reasons, but may not be the right stylistic choice for certain filmmakers in certain situations. Perhaps it's useful to highlight what kind of moves gimbals are good at doing and what situations they aren't suited to. I think gimbals are at their strongest when used for tracking the organic motions of characters in a relatively straight, predictable line at a moderate speed. For example, when following a character from behind or in front. Gimbals run into problems as soon as they stop moving. Because they are operated by a person who cannot hold their muscles completely still for an extended period of time, you inevitably get drift when trying to compose static shots, or movements that begin or end with a static frame on a gimbal. These little drifting motions that come from the operator not being able to hold the gimbal in 100% the same position can, for me, feel a little bit distracting, artificial, or unintentional in certain situations, compared to a more stable shot from a tripod or dolly that remains solidly locked off. The same applies to very slow, creeping camera moves. It's much easier to maintain a consistent line, speed, and frame when pushing in on a dolly or a slider than it is to do so on a gimbal, where again, as soon as you begin slowing down motion significantly, these same small off-course drifting motions will be felt. From slow movement to fast, another potential problem from an operator's perspective is the lack of reactivity that a gimbal has. If you want to do things like lightning fast whip pans, or film quick, choppy, spontaneous moves, the motors on the gimbal may not be able to move the camera quickly enough and come to abrupt hard stops without drifting. This is why shooting with a fluid head is great for precise whipping motion, while a handheld camera can inject scenes with a frenetic feeling that is also accurate and reactive to the movement and actions of the characters. Although gimbal technology in filmmaking has rapidly improved from the earlier days, these machines still occasionally suffer from technical glitches. For example, motors vibrating, rigs becoming unbalanced, or motors giving up during an oddly angled shot. Because these rigs rely on electrical components rather than other rigs like tripod heads which are purely mechanical, they are more prone to malfunctioning and also to wear and tear over time. When you pan a tripod, there's no doubt it will pan. However, when using a gimbal to pan, there's a larger chance that there may be a snag and the shot will have to be reset. Another aspect of reliability and ease of use also applies to weather. If you need a tracking shot done outside in the rain, you can easily set up a dolly, put a rain cover over the camera on the tripod head and shoot the shot. However, due to their electronics, most gimbals will not be able to run in the rain, nor is it recommended to cover a gimbal with a rain cover, as the extra weight may both alter the balance of the gimbal, make it difficult to properly operate, or overheat the motors. Therefore, purely mechanical grip rigs are almost always going to offer more reliability than their electronic friends. A final reason why gimbals can be more time consuming to work with over other rigs comes down to their larger setup time when rebuilding the camera between a gimbal rig and another configuration like a tripod. If you're working with a high-end cinema camera like an Alexa Mini for example, the body will have to be stripped down of excess weight, the eyepiece removed, accessories repositioned, and the correct plate for the gimbal attached. Typically, rebuilding a production camera into gimbal mode will take around 10 minutes. Again, this may not seem like a lot, but if you're constantly changing between gimbal and tripod throughout the day, this rebuilding time quickly accumulates into a lot of lost shooting time. If instead filmmakers choose to work with traditional rigs like a dolly, a tripod, and shooting handheld, it's incredibly quick to change between these shooting modes without needing to significantly rebuild the camera each time. So time saving on a gimbal is a double-edged sword. If you shoot almost every shot on a gimbal with a short zoom lens where you don't need to rebuild it and don't need to do lens changes and rebalance, you can save lots of setup time. However, if you need to constantly change between gimbal builds and a studio camera build, and work with prime lenses of different weights and sizes, then you'll end up adding a greater amount of setup time to the schedule. If you enjoyed this video, you may like to see the companion piece that highlights 5 advantages of using a gimbal. Special thank you to all the patrons who get these videos early and free of ads, as well as all the loyal subscribers. Otherwise, until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.